I spent 4 full days preparing for that evening, telling myself it would fix what had been quietly breaking for years. Not loudly, not dramatically, just small cracks spreading through the foundation of my family, the kind you only notice when it's already too late. My name is Mia, I'm 62, and that dinner was supposed to be a celebration. My grandson Oliver was coming home for the first time. That alone should have been enough to fill the house with joy. And in some ways, it did. I polished every surface until it reflected light like glass. I brought out the silverware I hadn't touched since my husband passed away. I even cooked dishes I hadn't made in years, the ones Lucas used to love when he was a boy. Lucas, my son. Everything I did that week was for him just as much as it was for the baby. Because somewhere along the way I had lost him. Not completely, he still called, sometimes. He still showed up on holidays. But there was distance now, a hesitation, as if every word he said had to pass through someone else's approval first. Her, Vanessa. Even thinking her name made something tighten in my chest. I didn't hate her, not at first. I tried not to. But there are people who don't destroy things openly, they reshape them quietly until nothing feels like it used to. That was Vanessa. The house looked beautiful that evening. Soft candlelight flickered across the dining room, reflecting off crystal glasses. The long oak table was dressed in white linen, pressed so perfectly it looked untouched. In the center, fresh white roses, my favorite, arranged carefully in a vase that had belonged to my grandmother. Everything had meaning. Everything had memory. I stood there for a moment before they arrived, just looking at it all, whispering to myself, let this go well. Just once, let it go well. When the doorbell rang, my heart jumped like I was a young mother again. I opened the door to see Lucas standing there, holding a car seat. And inside it, Oliver. So small, wrapped in a pale green blanket, his tiny face barely visible. My breath caught. Behind Lucas stood Vanessa, perfectly composed as always. Not tired, not overwhelmed like most new mothers, just controlled. Like she had already mastered this role. Hi, Mom, Lucas said softly. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Come in, I said quickly, stepping aside. I leaned slightly toward the baby. Can I? He just fell asleep, Vanessa interrupted before I finished. Her tone wasn't loud, but it cut clean. It took a while. Let's not wake him. I nodded immediately. Of course. I stepped back. Lucas gave me a small apologetic glance, but said nothing. That silence that had become familiar. We moved inside. My sister Elena was already there with her husband, along with 2 close family friends. The room filled with polite conversation, the kind that dances around tension instead of acknowledging it. At first, everything went fine. People complimented the house, the food, the baby. Vanessa stayed close to Lucas, always slightly angled toward him, always touching his arm or shoulder, subtle but constant. Like a reminder. Dinner was served. Plates were passed. Laughter came in short, careful bursts. I watched Lucas more than anyone else. He looked tired, not just from the baby, something deeper. And every time he spoke freely, Vanessa would gently interrupt or redirect him. Not obvious, but enough. By the time dessert came out, I thought maybe, just maybe, we would get through the evening without incident. That was my mistake. Elena raised her glass first. To Oliver, she said warmly. The newest light in our family. Everyone smiled, glasses lifted. And to Mia, she added, turning to me, for bringing us together tonight. I felt a small warmth in my chest. But it didn't last. Vanessa stood up before anyone could take a sip. I'd like to say something too. The room quieted. Her smile looked perfect. Too perfect. To Mia, she began, her voice smooth, The woman who has always made it her mission to control every detail of this family's life. The words landed like a crack of glass. No one moved. I felt my fingers tighten around my glass. Vanessa continued. Some people call it care. Others call it something else. A faint, sharp smile. I call it control. Lucas froze. Elena looked at me, eyes wide.
And
I didn't speak. Not yet. Because in that moment, something inside me shifted. Not broke. Shifted. Years of silence. Of watching. Of ignoring the signs. Of telling myself I was imagining things. All of it came together in one clear, undeniable truth. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was deliberate. I slowly set my glass down. The sound it made against the table felt louder than anything she had said. Then I stood up. Mia, Lucas started, but I raised my hand slightly.
not at him.
At the moment, if we're being honest tonight, I said calmly, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me, then I think it's time everyone hears something important. Vanessa's smile faltered. Just for a second.
But I saw it.
And that was enough. The trust, I continued, the one my husband left behind, it's not accessible the way you think it is. Silence. Vanessa's expression didn't change, but her eyes did.
Sharp.
Alert. It's protected, I said. Very carefully. Lucas looked confused. Mom, what are you talking about? I turned to him. I'm talking about why certain attempts to access it have failed. Vanessa's hand tightened around her glass. And suddenly, the room felt very, very small. I didn't want to do this tonight, I added quietly. But some things shouldn't stay hidden forever. The air shifted.
Completely.
Because the moment I said that, I knew this dinner wasn't going to heal anything. It was going to reveal everything. If I could go back and change one thing, it wouldn't be that night. It wouldn't be the words I said or the truth I revealed. It would be the moment I first felt something was wrong and chose to ignore it. Because the truth is, none of what happened at that dinner came out of nowhere. It had been building for years, quietly, carefully, like a storm you don't notice until it's already above your head. After I spoke, after the word trust hung in the air like something fragile and dangerous, everything changed. Lucas looked at me as if he didn't recognize me. Vanessa didn't speak at first, and that silence was more unsettling than anything she could have said. She just stared, her expression tightening ever so slightly, like someone recalculating a situation they thought they had under control. What do you mean, attempts? Lucas finally asked, his voice low, cautious. He wasn't angry yet, not fully. He was confused. And confusion is always the beginning of something much bigger. I didn't answer him right away. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew that once I started, there would be no going back. Some truths don't come out gently. They come out like a flood. Instead, I walked slowly to the sideboard and opened the drawer I had closed just before dinner began. Inside was a folder. Plain. Unremarkable. But heavy with everything I had tried not to confront. I didn't bring this out tonight to hurt anyone, I said, turning back toward them. I brought it because I hoped I wouldn't need to. Vanessa let out a short laugh. Too sharp, too quick. Oh, please. This is ridiculous. But she didn't tell me to stop. That told me everything. Lucas stood up halfway from his chair, uncertain whether to sit back down or come closer. Mom, what is this? I handed him the folder, and for a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint rustle of paper as he opened it. I watched his face. That was the hardest part. Watching the exact moment everything he believed began to shift. At first, it was just confusion. His eyes moved quickly across the pages, numbers, statements, account summaries. Then his brow furrowed. Then came the pause. That long, Still pause where the brain tries to make sense of something it doesn't want to understand. Vanessa, he said slowly, not looking up. What is this? She stood immediately. I'm not doing this. Not here. Not in front of everyone. That's probably where it should have been done a long time ago, I replied quietly. Her eyes snapped to me. There was again that flash of something sharp and cold beneath the surface. You went through our private information? She demanded. No, I said. I protected what belongs to my son.
Lucas looked up then.
Protected? From what? From her. I didn't say it like that. Not yet. Instead, I stepped closer, keeping my voice steady. Lucas, the trust your father left. It flags unusual activity connected to your financial profile. It's one of the safeguards he insisted on. Vanessa scoffed. That's insane. That's not how that works. It is when someone has been trying to access funds through indirect channels, I replied. Silence again. And then Lucas said something I will never forget. I never tried to access it. The room seemed to tilt. Slowly, he turned his head and looked at Vanessa. It was a small movement, but it changed everything. I closed my eyes briefly, just for a second, because this was the moment I had been afraid of for years. Not the confrontation, not the anger, but the realization. Because once someone sees clearly, they can't unsee it. It's not just that, I said, softer now. There's more. Vanessa stepped forward sharply. No, there isn't. This is manipulation. She's been waiting for a moment like this. I ignored her. Lucas, do you remember about a year ago when you came over to fix the kitchen light? He frowned slightly, caught off guard. Yeah, I think so. You left early, I said. You said Vanessa needed you. That something was wrong. He nodded slowly. She said you had called her, that you were upset, that you were questioning how we were spending money. I met his eyes. I never made that call. The silence that followed was heavier than anything before it. Lucas blinked. What? I never called her, I repeated. Not that day. Not any day. Vanessa laughed again, but this time there was strain in it. Oh my God, Mia, this is desperate. Is it? I asked calmly. Then show him the call log. That did it. That was the crack. Lucas turned to her fully now. Vanessa? She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. But that was enough, because hesitation is truth trying to surface. I don't have those records anymore, she said quickly. It was a long time ago. Lucas didn't respond. He just looked back down at the papers in his hands and kept reading. I could see the change happening in real time. The way his shoulders stiffened, the way his breathing slowed, not with calm, but with control. How many accounts are there? He asked quietly. Vanessa didn't answer. Vanessa, he said again more firmly. She crossed her arms. It's not what it looks like. That's always the line, isn't it? Not what it looks like. Not what you think. Not what it seems. But somehow it always is. Lucas flipped another page. And this, he said, holding it up slightly. This credit line? I didn't open this. No answer. Did you open this? He asked. Her silence stretched, then snapped. Yes, she said suddenly. I did. Because someone has to think about our future. The room flinched. Even Elena shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Our future. Lucas repeated, disbelief creeping into his voice. By putting debt in my name? It's not debt, it's investment, she fired back. Do you think raising a child is cheap? Do you think your mother's money is just going to magically support us forever? There it was, not even hidden anymore. I saw Lucas register it. Fully.
Completely.
My mother's money, he said slowly. Vanessa didn't realize what she had done. Or maybe she did, and it was too late. I stepped back slightly, giving them space.
Because this was no longer about me.
This was about truth finding its way through. Lucas closed the folder.
Carefully.
Too carefully. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. And for the first time since I had known her, Vanessa didn't have a perfect answer. I was going to, she said. The timing wasn't right. Lucas let out a quiet breath.
That's funny, he said.
Not angry, not loud, just tired. Because it never seems to be. That was the moment I realized something important. Not everything breaks in a dramatic explosion. Sometimes it happens in silence, in small realizations, in the space between what was said and what can no longer be denied. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and I knew, whatever happened next, there was no going back to the way things were. People think the truth is a clean thing, that once it comes out, everything becomes clear, like wiping fog off glass. But that's not how it works. The truth doesn't clean things, it complicates them. It forces you to look deeper, to ask questions you didn't even know existed. That night didn't end with shouting. It ended with something much worse, silence. After Lucas closed the folder, no one at the table knew what to say. Elena quietly gathered her things, giving me a look that said more than words ever could. Within minutes, the guests were gone, leaving behind untouched desserts, half-empty glasses, and a house that suddenly felt too big. Vanessa was the first to move. She grabbed her purse sharply, her movements precise, controlled, but her eyes betrayed her. Not fear exactly, not guilt either. Something colder, something calculating. We're leaving, she said. Lucas didn't move. I said we're leaving, she repeated, louder this time. I'm not done, he replied. His voice was calm, but I heard something in it I hadn't heard in years. Resolve. Vanessa stared at him, stunned for just a second. You're choosing this? She asked, gesturing vaguely toward me, toward the house, toward everything she clearly despised. I'm choosing to understand what's happening, he said. That's what she wants, Vanessa snapped. She's been waiting for this. You don't see it, but I do. I watched them both, my heart heavy. This wasn't the son I had raised arguing with his wife. This was a man standing at a crossroads he didn't even know he was approaching. Lucas, I said gently, you don't have to decide anything tonight. Vanessa turned on me immediately. Of course you'd say that. You've had years to plan this. I didn't respond. There was no point. Lucas rubbed his face, exhausted. Just stop. Both of you. The room went still. Then Oliver started crying. The sharp, sudden sound cut through everything. For a moment, all the tension disappeared, replaced by something real, something urgent. Vanessa moved toward the baby instinctively, but Lucas was closer. He picked Oliver up carefully, holding him against his chest, rocking him gently. And I saw it then. The shift. The way Lucas looked down at his son, not as a husband, not as someone caught in a fight, but as a father. What kind of life am I building for him? He whispered. It wasn't directed at anyone, but it landed on all of us. Vanessa softened for a second. Just a second. Lucas, we can figure this out. We always do. But there was a difference now. Before, those words would have worked. Now, they didn't. How many things have we figured out that I never even knew about? He asked quietly. She hesitated. Again. And that hesitation spoke louder than any confession. I did it for us, she said finally. Everything I did, it was for us. You think I wanted to hide things? You think I enjoy this? Lucas didn't respond right away. He just kept rocking Oliver, who was slowly calming down. I think, he said after a long pause, you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. Vanessa's expression hardened again. Because you wouldn't understand. That was it. That one sentence. I saw Lucas absorb it, slowly, like something sinking deep. Then maybe you never gave me the chance, he replied. Silence again.
Heavy.
Final. Vanessa exhaled sharply, shaking her head. I'm not doing this here. Not with her standing there like she's won something. This isn't about winning, I said quietly. She laughed bitterly. Everything with you is about control. No, I said. Everything with me is about protecting what my husband built for our family. Her eyes flashed. Your family. I held her gaze. Yes. There it was. No more pretending. Lucas noticed it too. He looked between us, and I could see the realization forming, not just about money or lies, but about something deeper. Something that had been shaping his life, without him fully understanding it. I need space, he said suddenly. Vanessa blinked. What? I need space to think, he repeated. All of this, I can't process it right now. You're coming home, she said firmly. No, he replied. The word landed like a stone. No, she repeated, her voice rising slightly. I'm staying here tonight, he said, with Oliver. Vanessa's face changed completely. Not anger.
Not yet.
Something closer to panic. You're taking my son? She demanded. Our son, Lucas corrected. You're not taking him anywhere without me, she snapped, stepping forward. Lucas didn't move back. He's staying with me tonight, he said. That's not a negotiation. For a moment I thought she might explode, but instead, she went very still.
Too still.
And that scared me more than anything. Fine, she said finally, her voice suddenly calm.
Too calm.
One night. Lucas didn't respond. She grabbed her purse again, this time slower. But before leaving, she turned to me. And the look she gave me, I won't forget it. This isn't over, she said quietly. I know, I replied. Because I did. People like Vanessa don't lose control quietly. They regroup. They plan. They come back stronger. The door slammed behind her, echoing through the house. And just like that, it was over. At least that part of it. Lucas stood there for a long time, still holding Oliver, who had fallen asleep again. Neither of us spoke. Finally, he looked at me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He asked. The question hurt more than anything Vanessa had said. Because I was afraid. I admitted. Of what? Of losing you completely. He looked down. I think you almost did anyway, he said softly. I nodded. I know. We stood there in the quiet, surrounded by the remains of a dinner that had turned into something else entirely. I don't know what to do, he said after a while. You don't have to decide everything tonight, I said. Just take it one step at a time. He nodded slowly. Can we stay here? He asked. Of course, I said immediately. That night, I made up the guest room for him. I found an old crib we had stored away and set it up again. As I worked, I realized something strange. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt alive. Not peaceful. Not yet. But real. Later, as I passed by the room, I saw Lucas sitting on the edge of the bed, watching Oliver sleep. His expression was unreadable, but I could see the weight of everything pressing down on him. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't just expose others. It changes you too. And as I stood there, watching my son face a reality he never expected, I knew this was only the beginning. The next morning didn't feel like a new day. It felt like the continuation of something unfinished, like the world had paused overnight just to give us a few hours to breathe before everything started again. I woke up earlier than usual, even though I barely slept. The house was quiet, but it wasn't the same quiet I had grown used to over the years. This one carried tension, like the air before a storm. I made coffee out of habit, standing by the kitchen window as the sky slowly brightened, trying to gather my thoughts. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't wondering if I had done the right thing. I knew I had. What I didn't know was what it would cost. Lucas came downstairs just after 7, Oliver in his arms. He looked exhausted but different. Not lighter, not yet, but clearer somehow, like someone who had finally stopped lying to themselves. He slept better than I expected, he said quietly, adjusting the blanket around the baby. That's because he feels safe, I replied without thinking. Lucas looked at me, and for a moment neither of us said anything. There was too much between us. Years of distance, misunderstandings, silence. But there was also something else now. A beginning. We sat down at the table, neither of us touching the coffee right away. I kept thinking about everything last night, he said, trying to find a way to explain it or justify it. And I asked gently. There isn't one, he admitted. I nodded slowly. That realization, as painful as it was, mattered more than anything I could have said. Before I could respond, there was a sharp knock on the door. Not a polite one. A demand. Lucas stiffened immediately. We both knew who it was. She said noon, he muttered. It's not even 8, I replied. The knock came again, louder this time. Oliver stirred in his arms. I'll get it, Lucas said, standing up before I could stop him. I followed anyway, because something told me this wasn't going to be simple. When Lucas opened the door, Vanessa didn't wait to be invited in. She stepped inside like she still owned the space, her eyes immediately scanning the room until they landed on the baby. Give him to me, she said.
No griting. No hesitation.
Lucas didn't move. He's fine, he replied calmly. He just woke up. I said give him to me, she repeated, her voice sharper now. There was something different about her. Not just anger, something more controlled, more focused. Like she had spent the night preparing. No, Lucas said. The word hung in the air. Vanessa blinked, clearly not expecting that. Excuse me? I said no, he repeated. We're going to talk first. Her jaw tightened. You don't get to set the terms here. I think I do, he said quietly. After everything I found. The tension in the room rose instantly. I stayed silent, watching carefully. Vanessa turned to me then, her eyes cold. This is what you wanted. No, I said calmly. This is what you created. Before she could respond, there was another knock at the door. All 3 of us froze. Vanessa frowned. Who is that? I don't know, I said honestly. Lucas hesitated, then walked over and opened the door again. And everything changed. Standing on the porch was a woman I had never seen before, but I knew immediately who she was. She looked like Vanessa. Not identical, but close enough. Same eyes, same posture. But where Vanessa carried tension, this woman carried something softer. Something human. Hi, she said gently. I'm looking for Mia. That's me, I said, stepping forward. She gave me a small, almost apologetic smile. My name is Claire. Vanessa went completely still. No, she said under her breath. Yes, Claire replied quietly, stepping inside. It's me. Lucas looked between them, confused. Vanessa, who is this? Vanessa didn't answer.
Claire did.
I'm her sister. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Lucas blinked. You never mentioned a sister. I know, Claire said. There's a lot she hasn't mentioned. Vanessa snapped out of it then. You need to leave.
Now.
Claire didn't move. I can't do that. Yes, you can, Vanessa said sharply. This has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me, Claire replied, her voice still calm but firmer now. Because I've seen this before. That got everyone's attention. Lucas frowned. Seen what? Claire looked at him, and I saw something in her eyes, not judgment, not anger, but concern. Her pattern, she said. Vanessa let out a harsh laugh. Oh, this should be good. Claire ignored her. Lucas, you're not the first person she's done this to. The room seemed to shrink. What are you talking about? He asked slowly.
Claire took a breath.
She was married before. Lucas froze. Vanessa's head snapped toward her. Don't you dare. But it was already too late. His name was Daniel, Claire continued. And it ended the same way this is starting. That's a lie, Vanessa said immediately. Too quickly. Claire reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. I felt something in my chest tighten. Not again, but yes, again. I didn't come here to hurt anyone, Claire said. I came because I couldn't stay silent this time. She handed the folder to Lucas. And I watched history repeat itself. The same hesitation, the same slow realization, different documents, same truth. Marriage certificate, divorce papers, Lucas muttered, flipping through them. Vanessa stepped forward. You have no right. I have every right, Claire interrupted, her voice sharper now. I stayed quiet last time. I watched her destroy someone's life and told myself it wasn't my place. I won't do that again. Lucas looked up, his face pale. Vanessa, is this true? She didn't answer. And that was answer enough. She told us he was abusive, Claire continued. Controlling. But he wasn't. He just trusted her. Vanessa's composure cracked. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about, Claire said. Because I watched it happen. The room fell silent again. Oliver made a small sound, shifting in Lucas's arms, completely unaware of the storm unfolding around him. And in that moment, everything finally aligned. Not just the money, not just the lies, but the pattern. Lucas closed the folder slowly, and when he looked at Vanessa again, it wasn't confusion anymore. It was clarity, and that was far more dangerous. 6 months can feel like a lifetime when everything you thought was stable collapses and rebuilds itself from the ground up. If someone had told me on the night of that dinner how things would end, I wouldn't have believed them. Not because it was impossible, but because it required too much truth, too much loss, and too much change all at once. After Claire revealed everything, the room never really recovered from that moment. There was no dramatic explosion, no final shouting match that would neatly close the chapter. Instead, things unraveled slowly, painfully, like threads being pulled one by one until nothing was left holding the fabric together. Vanessa didn't deny it for long. That was perhaps the most surprising part. At first, she tried, deflecting, shifting blame, questioning Claire's intentions. But something had changed. The control she relied on was gone, and without it, the performance couldn't hold. When Lucas didn't defend her, didn't interrupt, didn't soften, she realized she had lost the ground she was standing on. Yes, she said finally. Just that one word.
No emotion. No tears.
Yes, I was married before. Lucas didn't react immediately. He just stood there, holding Oliver, as if anchoring himself to something real while everything else slipped away. What else? He asked quietly. That question, it mattered more than the confession, because it meant he already knew. And Vanessa knew he knew. For a moment, I thought she might still try to salvage something, twist the story, reshape it like she always had. But instead, something unexpected happened. She stopped pretending. It doesn't matter, she said. None of it matters. It matters to me, Lucas replied. She shook her head. You think this is about truth? It's about survival. It's about not ending up with nothing. Claire looked at her, sadness in her eyes. We didn't have nothing, Vanessa. We just didn't have everything. That's easy for you to say, Vanessa snapped. You were always fine with less. And you were never satisfied with anything, Claire said quietly. That silence that followed felt different from the others. Not tense, not explosive, just final. Lucas adjusted Oliver in his arms, then looked at Vanessa in a way I had never seen before. Not as a husband, not even as someone hurt, but as someone who had finally stepped outside of the illusion. "I don't know who you are," he said. Vanessa flinched, just slightly.
"But I saw it."
"You do," she replied. "You just don't like it." "No," he said. "I think I never really knew you at all." That was the moment everything ended. Not legally, not officially, but emotionally. Completely. Vanessa left not long after that. This time, there were no threats, no dramatic exits, no slammed doors. She simply picked up her bag, looked at Lucas one last time, and then at Oliver, and walked out.
No voudriez. No apology.
Just absence. And sometimes that's louder than anything else. The weeks that followed were not easy. People think that once the bad person is gone, everything becomes better instantly. That's not true. What comes after is something much more complicated. Rebuilding, healing, facing the damage that doesn't disappear just because its source is gone. Lucas stayed with me. At first, it was supposed to be temporary, just until he figured things out. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into something that started to feel like a new normal.
The house changed.
Not physically, but emotionally. There was laughter again. Not constant, not perfect, but real. Oliver's presence filled every room with something light and grounding. He didn't know anything about what had happened. He didn't carry any of it. And that innocence, it helped more than anything. Lucas struggled.
Of course he did.
There were nights I heard him walking around long after everyone should have been asleep. Days when he seemed distant, lost in thoughts he couldn't quite put into words. But he didn't shut down the way he used to. He didn't withdraw. He faced it. That was the difference. He started therapy about a month after Vanessa left. Not because I told him to, not because anyone pushed him, because he chose to. "I need to understand how I let this happen," he said one evening. And that was the beginning of real healing. Claire stayed in our lives too. Not out of obligation, but because something genuine had formed in the middle of all the chaos. She visited often, sometimes helping with Oliver, sometimes just sitting with me in the garden, talking about things that had nothing to do with her sister. We didn't talk about Vanessa much. Not because we were avoiding it, but because we didn't need to anymore. 3 months after everything happened, we received a postcard. No return address. Just a few words. "I'm starting over. Tell Lucas I'm sorry. Tell Oliver I love him." That was it.
No explanation.
No attempt to come back. Just distance. Lucas read it once, then set it down. He didn't say anything for a long time. And then finally, "I hope she finds what she's looking for." Not anger. Not forgiveness. Just acceptance. 6 months later, life looks different. Not perfect, but real. Lucas smiles more now. Not the careful, measured smile I had grown used to, but the kind that comes naturally, without thought. He spends his weekends with Oliver in the yard, teaching him things that are far too advanced for a child his age, but doing it anyway just to hear him laugh. And me? I found something I didn't expect.
Peace.
Not the kind that comes from everything going right, but the kind that comes from knowing the truth and surviving it. Sometimes I still think about Vanessa, not with anger, not even with resentment, but with a quiet understanding. Some people don't destroy things because they're evil. They do it because they're broken in ways they refuse to face. And until they do, they'll keep running. That evening, as the sun set over the garden, I sat watching Lucas push Oliver on the small swing we had installed together. His laughter echoed through the air, light and free, untouched by everything that had come before. "We made it," I whispered to myself. Not the way I imagined, not the way I planned, but we did. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough.